Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. And we're back. We're here. Is it only still December? Honestly, are we really in December already having these kind of shows? If you're for the very, very first time, you can find us. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're back after what's it been? 9-10 days of a little bit of optimism, talks of corners being turned. It feels for a lot of people out there, Tottenham have returned to a crisis point. Back on the show alongside me, I'm joined by the wonderful Billie T. I'm joined by Lubin. Lubin, of course, we're joined by Chatty Paddy back on the show. Lovely to hear Pat back on here and Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. Before we bring in the panel and their thoughts, of course, guys, if you can for us out there, it's going to be, I'm sure, an explosive edition of Last Word on Spurs. A lot of hard-hitting opinions. If you can for us, like, hype, subscribe to the show. That would be greatly appreciated. If you want to get involved in the live comments, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button, refresh the link, and that should allow you in to the live chat. Look, personal thoughts for me in terms of the game and just generally where we are with Spurs at the moment. You know, Forest defeating Tottenham by 3-0. That's their biggest victory over Spurs since 1987. That's Thomas Frank's 5th defeat out of 7 games against Sean Dyche. And with Spurs just registering the only or one shot on target, Tottenham now hold the lowest XG of chances created against Nottingham Forest all season, that being 0.3. And that is the 11th game out of 16 in the Premier League where Spurs haven't been able to reach 1 XG. And Spurs will average under the 1 XG per Premier League match under Thomas Frank. For those interested in that stat, 0.9625 per game. It is just 1 win in our last 5 Premier League games. And Spurs have failed to win consecutive league games for the first time since August after a miserable trip to the City Ground, where 2 goals from Callum Hudson-Odoi and, of course, Ibrahim Sangare moved Forest 5 points clear of the relegation zone, with Tottenham now having picked up just 22 points across their opening 16 Premier League games this season. Won 6, drawn 4, lost 6. Last recording fewer at this stage of a league campaign in the 08-09 season, where we had 18 at that point. In addition to that, Spurs, who, let's be honest about it, the display was disjointed throughout, have now had 5 errors into goals this season, and that is behind only bottom of the table Wolves with 7. That result leaves Thomas Frank's Tottenham in mid-table. We sit 11th at the moment on 22 points from 16 games. We're actually closer points-wise to the relegation zone than we've ever been in the last 10 Premier League seasons. And before people ask me, yes, that does include last season. 16 goals conceded in our last 5 away matches. And I'm sorry to bring you those stats right as we enter the show. Let's bring you the match facts and the stats. If you can stomach them, it finished at the City Ground. Forest 3, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Forest 13 shots to Tottenham 6. Forest 6 shots on target to Tottenham's 1 of the game. Forest 24 touches in the Tottenham box in comparison to our 13. Errors leading to goals. Tottenham, again, as we mentioned, pretty much leading this chart this season. 2 for them, of course, Forest 0. Big chances created during the game. Forest 3, Tottenham 0, becoming a regular theme. Keeper saves. Tottenham's Vicario, again a regular theme. The busier of the 2 goalkeepers, 3-1. We shared the corner count, 3-3. We edged possession, 52% to 48%. And again, we mentioned that XG figure that keeps popping up around Tottenham. Forest 2.15 to Tottenham's measly 0.37. I said it at the top of the show. I'll repeat it again, unfortunately. Thomas Frank's 5th defeat out of 7 games against Sean Dyche, one of his friends. And he's got the number in him at the moment. Bill, we're going to open with you. Look, before I do actually say this, in terms of the game itself, many are suggesting that Thomas Frank is a mid-table manager, but is it deeper than that? We are going to have a conversation around Frank. Is it just simply this squad nowhere near good enough, regardless who comes in to the job? But Frank did come out fighting in his post-match press conference, which we'll bring you shortly, and warned sacking him won't fix Tottenham Hotspur's issues, and this job is no quick fix. Bill, we're going to open with you, mate. It's lovely to have you back on the show. Sorry it's under these circumstances. Look, Forest, let's be honest about it, they may never have an easier 3 points than that at home. And you would actually never believe that Forest played away on the Thursday in Europe, whilst Tottenham, we played on the Tuesday. Therefore, meaning Tottenham had 2 extra days rest and preparation for the game. We came into it, of course, looking for our 3rd win in a row for the first time in more than a year, but instead produced yet another absolutely dismal display to go with many that we've had this season. Bill, thoughts on the game before we come on to a wider context of where this leaves Tottenham?
The game was an absolute disgrace, to be honest, from minute one. It was an abject performance. And the big concern for me was this is a long list of many that we've seen this season. Arsenal, Chelsea, Fulham, there's an endless supply of these games. Just from minute one, you could tell immediately that Forest were way more up for it than us. It's another horrific performance. Like, in terms of this game as well, our passing was absolutely woeful. I don't think I can remember a Tottenham performance, in at least the last couple of days where the pass has been that bad. But it was an absolutely disgrace, to be honest, mate. There was no cohesion. There was no kind of attacking set plays or no kind of way to break forward. It was just horrific. It was a disgraceful performance on every single conceivable level, and I think it's another mark against the manager, against the players. I think the problems run deep, and I know we'll get into that in a bit. I'm not solely blaming Thomas Frank for this, because this is all that goes far beyond him, I believe, as well. But when we're consistently seeing these performances where we're struggling to even generate chances, generate shots on target, one shot on target, we're going into halftime 0.06 xG. You just can't keep stomaching it as a fan. Like, you have to give us something to hold on to. And this is a long list and absolutely disgraceful performances that we've seen over the last few years at this football club. We're soul searching now, thinking, why is it happening? Is it the manager? Is it the owners? Is it the players? And we're just bored of it. We're so bored. I'm so bored of doing this every single season, every single year. This football club it's in a bad way. But in terms of the actual game, I know we'll get into that in a minute, but in terms of the game, just absolutely disgraceful. And, in answer to the, Thomas Frank saying, if you change me, you're going to need to give the time. I think, as we'll come on to a bit later on, I think it's all good to give time to the right manager. I think this game is further evidence that this guy is not the right manager.
I think that's the key thing people have got to ask themselves at the moment. I think we're all acutely aware, despite winning that Europa League last season, we were told that was going to be the springboard to success. I think we're all widely aware that many, if not a lot of these players are nowhere near the grade of what we would like to see at Tottenham Hotspur. But you make a really important point there, Bill. It's really important, if you go through the build, it's with the right person to go through that with, right?
And I think what was really obvious today is, if you look at Sean Dyche, and you look at the Forest squad, but at the beginning of the season, there weren't many of those Forest players that you take, man for man over our players, generally speaking. I know they've got some fantastic players like Anderson and Gibbs White, but other than that, you'd struggle to think many of those would get into a Tottenham lineup. But look at the performance that he got out of his Forest squad today. It's not the first time he's done it this season when I beat Porto. This is a manager who's come in and got them playing. That Forest performance today is far and away like anything we've seen under Thomas Frank at Tottenham. So it's possible. Not every single manager needs time. Like Dyche has managed to turn it around. So why can't Tottenham? I think it's a disgrace that we have to sit here again and think, is it the players, is it the manager? We do this every single season now. We're stuck in this endless cycle. I don't know what the answer is to how to break it, but it's certainly at the moment, I can't see the, as Andrew said famously, every time you see the light coming out of a travel, it's an light coming out the tunnel, it's an incoming train. And that's what it feels like as a fan at the moment. We just, thought maybe we turned a corner with 2 decent performances and a good result against Newcastle, but this was as bad as we've been all season. So it's an absolute disgrace for me.
I kind of say one other thing, I think when Andrew's name is brought up, I think there's this common notion on here, if Andrew's name gets mentioned by someone, everyone wants Ange back. I don't think anyone is sitting here saying they want Ange Postecoglou back at the football club, but you can use it in different contexts, what you're referencing in terms of what you're seeing at certain points, just to make that very, very clear. Lubin, we're going to come to you next. I have to share some more horrendous stats around Spurs right now. And forgive me, guys, you might want to cover your ears for these as well. Tottenham this season, 16th for shots, 17th for shots on target, 17th for XG, 17th for shot creating actions, 17th for point earned at home, most errors into a goal, 5. Lubo, I'm going to come over to you. Speaking ahead of the game, Frank said he expected a front-footed, aggressive, brave and offensive-minded performance from his side. Let's be honest about it. There was nothing of sort to back that up. Spurs at times, we attacked, I would say, at walking pace and barely ever really picked up after the break. I think you also have to bear in mind, Frank gave his players 2 days off, but at some points we looked so knackered and fatigued. It's like we hadn't kicked the ball for ages, and Forest were throughout that game so dominant. Yes, a mistake for 2 goals, but you can't say Forest didn't deserve to win that and probably should have won it by more. So, Lubo, for you, thoughts on the game before we get into the wider context?
Jesus, where do I start? God, thoughts on the game. Another horror show to go with Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, Bodo, Monaco, Arsenal and Chelsea. That's 8. The players are just not good enough. You can talk about systems, you can talk about tactics. They're just not good enough. This squad is not good enough. I was massively Ange out because his system for me was wrong. He left us wide open and he wouldn't change. I sympathise with the injuries. The injuries didn't help. But even if he'd have had his players in, he still would have left us wide open. So that's why I was Ange out. I thought we'd improve. I thought that he would improve us, Frank, with certain players. And he started off the season and we were structured and we were more disciplined. And I suppose because it's been such a shit show for the last 2 years, and yes, before anyone comments, we won a European trophy, but the club wasn't stable. The results just got worse and worse and worse. 9 defeats out the last 12 in last season in the league. The players finished 17th last season, and if we're not careful, we'll finish pretty close to that this season as well. Players are not good enough. As I say, you can play 3-5-2, 3-4-1-2, whatever formation you want to play, 4-4-2. We need 10, 12, 15 players in this squad to improve it. There are so many that are just not good enough. And I think, you just think about it. You compare this team or any of our best 11 to the Pochettino team of 2016, 2017. And look how far we've regressed. The drop-off is horrendous. It's no more to say. I was really up for it. I love the club. I'm one of these fans that, you have some good results. And so, like most fans, your heart rules your head sometimes. I was really looking forward to seeing Spurs play today. And again, it's just been horrendous. And enough with I see Porro came out with the apology today. Enough with the apologies. We've had Porro, we've had Romero, we've had Vicario several times. It means nothing. It means nothing. I came away from the last 3 games thinking they are playing for this manager. I'm not so sure. So sure. But can you imagine you bring in another manager? What's any other manager going to do with this squad of players?
Well, Luba, that's where we're going to come on to next and ask you about that for sure. We're going to come around to that point. And I'll say, lovely to be back on the show. Thank you ever so much. We'll come around on that point. Luba just mentioned there very, very shortly. Before I do, Pat, I am going to come to you. And look, the reality of this game, I think for many out there when watching it, if they had to put themselves through watching it, is that even when we were 1 or 2 or 3 goals down, there was no real intent or intensity shown from Spurs at any point when they were trying to go forward. There was no, I would say, at times attacking plan beyond crossing the ball. To add to that, you had a non-existent midfield and Spurs were absolutely run ragged defensively. Look, I think forget the optimism around the wins over Brentford and Slavia Prague, because it does feel Frank is right back to square one. That's Forest's biggest win of the season. We've registered once again just a shot on target against the Forest side going into this. That was 17th in the Premier League. I'll ask you, Pat, how can you account for such a bad display when it felt for some out there, not all, that we were potentially maybe turning a corner, Pat? How do you summarise that game and what we've been put through? And I'm so sorry, Pat, because I know you probably feel here that I'm putting you through some terrible ones on here. You've been here for some of our worst on here. I'm so sorry, mate. Give us your thoughts on that game.
Yeah, what's good, everyone? Hope everyone's well. Yeah, what's good in the hood? And yeah, I apologize, man. It's been awful, hasn't it? And that was another, like Lubo said, it was another shit show. And like Lubo as well, I was agreeing with pretty much most of what he said. I went into this game actually optimistic and looking forward to it. I thought we had turned the corner. There was a spring in our step again. And I thought, okay, we're going to put Forest to the sword today. I thought it'd be a comfortable 2 or 3 niller. I genuinely thought we would put them to the sword and then go and, basically express ourselves. And Xavi, Kudus, Romero, Van der Ven, all these guys have looked good recently. Even Richarlison, as much as I dislike him, he'd been scoring goals for fun. I thought we would come out and pretty much a Forest team that was lacking confidence, just come off a bad result. You don't ask for an easier game, dare I say it, in the Premier League. And we got our asses handed to us, and we were second best in every category. 55, 65 minutes in, I just wanted the game to end. I knew we weren't going to score. We could have played till next Tuesday or Wednesday. We didn't look like, at once testing their goalkeeper. Their back line probably had the easiest game they've ever had. Sean Dyche had the easiest game here, probably managing the Premier League this season. And I keep saying this every time I see us play. We just make the opposition look good. There's no backbone, there's no fight in this team. And unfortunately, the team is a reflection of the manager. And this manager coming out and saying that, I need time and all of this and that, I'm not buying it. I just don't think this guy's got what it takes to really manage this team and take us through the rebuild. The problem is, I'm not going to be screaming Thomas Frank out because I just don't see who else comes in, and I just don't want to see another manager get fired. But also at the same time, like Billy said, I don't think this guy is the right guy to hang our hat on. So I'm really stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, because realistically, with the way we're performing, not just the results, the performances, forget the results, look at the performances. This guy's nowhere near getting the best out of this team. And I know Lubo said a lot of good things, but I do disagree with the part he said about the squad not being good enough for the players. There's some good players in this team, 100%. We see that when they play for their international teams, and we see that in certain games. But the fact that Thomas Frank can't get them playing as a unit, that is the manager's problem, because there's bundles of quality in this team, 100%. Even the guys that we don't like Brennan Johnson, this guy's still playing well for his country. He's still performing for Wales. I'm not his biggest fan, but he does score goals. Again, Thomas Frank can't get a tune out of him. Thomas Frank can't get a tune out of anyone. Moani is a good player, but if we're being honest, he's not really getting a tune out of him. Richarlison, yeah, he's getting probably the best out of him. Still yet to see what's going on with Archie Gray, and really, I'm yearning to see the player that everyone told me he's going to be. He looked good in defence last year when he was playing as a makeshift centre-back, but actually in his rightful position this season, he's not looked good. Vicario is an absolute waste of space and needs to be sold. I'm not sold on him whatsoever. And I think we just need to cut our losses with him and get in a better goalkeeper, because this guy is playing suicidal football. He keeps hanging his defenders out to dry. Like Archie Gray didn't have his best game, but I think it's because Vicario killed him within the first however what minutes it was. That pass is mental. I don't know how you play a pass to a defender who's on his back foot with two players, closing down on him. 9 times out of 10, that is going to be a goal. It's crazy. And I just see Pedro Porro, again, not good defensively, okay going forward. But there's just too many players that are not looking good in this team. And again, that's because of the manager. The manager is so scared to play football. He's so scared to actually play football and allow these guys to express themselves. And it's worrying times, because when you look at the performances and you look at the teams that we've played, and you look at the fact that we can't even get an XG above 1, we can't, we're never...
We can't average above 1. We can't get an average above 1.
Yeah, and we're struggling to score goals. We're struggling to break teams down. Yeah, it's worrying times. It really is. And I don't even want to exaggerate. This is literally what we're seeing. We're 16 games in. So that's a good enough sample size to see and understand what's going on. By the time you played about 16 games, you've played a good proportion of all teams. You've played probably an Arsenal, a City, you've played mid-table teams, you played teams at the bottom. And the fact that we're only on 22 points?
Yeah.
That's our worst in 14 seasons. We've won 6, drawn 4, lost 6. So we're a bang average mid-table team right now. There's no hiding behind that. There's no hiding behind how poor we are. And I do think the buck stops with the manager. I don't know who we bring in. I've not even looked at managers available. I've not looked at none of that. But I don't think Thomas Frank is good enough. I think that the truth is in the pudding, isn't it? And it's right there in front of us. This guy's not getting the best out of this team. And at the beginning, everyone was saying, "Oh yeah, he's a fantastic manager." Me included. I'm not immune to it. I'm the same as all of you guys. You know, fantastic tactician, great manager. Da 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 da, and I'm not seeing none of that today. The substitutions alone probably is where a lot of fans turned on him. We're 2 goals down, and we're bringing on Ben Davis, and we're bringing on players that are never going to get us a goal. That's just insane to me. So I just think, Ricky, that I don't know, man. I don't know where we go from here, but I don't think this guy's the answer.
Okay, look, we're going to come on to Frank and more, and also potential replay, but if people do feel we need to make a change. Luke, lovely to be back on the show. I know we're drafting you in and throwing you into shows left, right, and centre, mate. It's a lovely, like I say, pleasure to have you join us here. Look, we're not going to get away from it. That was absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. Easily one of our worst performances this season. But I think, like Lubo said at the start of the show, we've seen so many of them. You know, the likes of Fulham recently, Arsenal, Chelsea, Wolves, Bodo Glimt, Bournemouth. You know, we was playing against the goalkeeper on his Premier League debut, and we registered just 1 shot on target. You know, I called it passive football. I mean, at times, it was disjointed and walking football. You know, we didn't even play with any sense of aggressivity, Thomas Frank's word that he loves to use. And I just, from mentality, the lack of character in this team, you see Pedro Porro, I think one of the worst performers on the day, squared up to Elliot Anderson just before half-time. You saw Frank pointing to his head, calling for calm at one point. You had Jed Spence brought off on the hour mark, reacting really angrily, muttering and gesturing on his way off before launching his jacket on the floor. Just feels, Luke, there's a combination here of really unhappy players and potentially a manager that also is finding it very, very hard to consistently get a tune out of this team. Before we come on to Frank, thoughts for you, look on the overall display, because like Pat picked up on there was a substitution in there that I know for many Tottenham fans, that for them was the final straw, no matter how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, the guys have summed up the game. The game was absolutely disgraceful. My biggest bugbear, and someone mentioned it earlier, is not just about the results; it's about the performance, right? The biggest problem for me is that right now teams don't have to play well against us. They don't have to have a great moment. It's not got to be something special. They haven't got to work particularly hard. Like some games, you turn up and you go, do you know what? If we work really hard against these today, we'll beat them. Or it's against a real tough opposition. We need something special. They don't need any of that. Like Nottingham Forest turned up today and absolutely smashed us. And they didn't do anything that was out of the box, that was unbelievable. We was just so bad. And it's very similar to Arsenal when we played them. Everyone was saying, was it them that made us look bad or the other way around? Well, the rest of their fixtures since has proved that they're not in great form. So it was more down to us allowing them to be so good. And this has become a continuation from way back when. I said this last year when everyone was telling me that as soon as the manager goes, you'll see the difference. And I was like, you won't. You absolutely will not. And the reason why you won't is because the medical team have struggled. Everyone goes back to Ange's conversation about Kulusevski. What he actually said in that was, I've spoken to the medical team and they've said that he's okay and that he'll be fine. We still haven't seen him. The recruitment hasn't been anywhere near good enough because a lot of the players that we're going to sit here and probably say, we should sign, or our players are not quite as good as them. If we would have signed them, our fans wouldn't have been happy. If we signed Elliot Anderson at the time he went to Forest, our fans wouldn't have been sitting there going, what a signing that is for 40 million. They'd have been going, no, we're better than that. And now all of a sudden, he's a player. That's me included, as Patrick said. That's me included. There's several other players like that as well. So there's so many different facets of this club that needs to be improved. And the problem is with the stuff, not just the manager, with the other stuff, you kind of have to take a little while before you can actually see the fruits of the labour. Your recruitment's not just going to be immediately, instantly great. It kind of has to work gradually. And obviously you then judge it after a year, after 18 months, how that player's come in and adapted sort of thing. But I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, is the fact that teams don't have to turn up and go, we'll turn up against Spurs, we have to put this in, we have to do that. They can literally turn up, be half-hearted and still walk away beating us. So, yeah, I mean, talking about giving away the ball, it was continual. I'll write notes during the game, and I literally wrote it about 15 times. We just keep giving the ball away. It's not even a lot of teams where you're being high pressed. Teams get worried about passing the ball and then they start losing it. with us, there's no pressure whatsoever. We're just giving it away for fun. And then the subs. I mean, a lot of people are going to be annoyed about the Ben Davies sub. My biggest bugbear was the fact that as soon as they scored the second, I was like, we're not getting into this. We will not score a goal. And that front four stayed on the pitch until the 78th minute. So we've played with you for 75, 78 minutes. We haven't scored. We've had one shot which came from Archie Gray. And yet we're still saying, no, if we continue with them, we're going to like it just. So both of the substitutions in terms of the sets made absolutely no sense to me. And when we're saying about blame, he has to absolutely take some of that blame.
Yeah, I think the question to come on to is, like you say, that point about blame is that going to be shared, right, in relation to the players? Obviously, the Lewis family, in terms of, again, how much do you apportion in terms of what they've now got to pick up in these next couple of windows to really genuinely show a lot of Tottenham fans out there that they do mean business. And look, I think they've already maybe are going to be on the verge of having one of their biggest decisions to make already, as whether rightly or wrongly, to keep Thomas Frank in charge. One thing I do want to bring up, and again, thanks to all the viewers and listeners here for contributing to the show already. And this is from Nikara 3836. Thanks for this. 1.08 points per game from the last 12. That is relegation form. Can't get away from that. Tottenham's points being taken, they are, in relation to that group there, that would get you relegated. Look, we're going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. We're going to hear directly from Thomas Frank and what he's made of that game. And when we come back, we are going to discuss what the future is for Tottenham. Should it be under Frank? Should it be elsewhere? We're going to ask you, there's over nearly 7,500 of you watching us live. Thank you ever so much for your incredible support for Last One Spurs. We're going to ask you, please, if you can, to like, hype, subscribe to the show, share this out to a wide range Spurs audience. And if you would like to get involved in the live chat, you should hit that subscribe button, refresh the feed if it doesn't allow you in already, and it will do. Let's hear from Tottenham Hotspur head coach for now, Thomas Frank, on the back of that game, of course, against Nottingham Forest.
2 steps forward, big leap back today. What would you make of it?
Yeah, absolutely agree. That was very disappointing. It was a bad performance. Frustrating because I think the last 3 games were good on performance and result, and they're normally linked. And you can lose a game, but if you lose a game like this, that's the frustrating part, of course. I think every game until the 1-0 goal, I think it was a little bit back and forth for both teams. Half transition both ways. And then after the first goal, I think we lost structure and were more disjointed. And then the 2-0 goal killed the game off. Basically not in the game after that, in my opinion. And that's part of keep the structure, keep the game plan, keep going, keep doing the right things. So that's definitely, it's not the first time we've seen that. This year, last year, whatever. That's something that's ongoing work in progress before we be more consistent in that. Of course, doesn't help that we made 2 mistakes with the first 2 goals. But again, that can happen in football. So we just need to keep doing the right things. So everything looks the right way. And then on top of that, we decided to throw the ball away at least 25 times. So we can't hit each other 25 times. That's going to make it difficult for you to create anything or to win a game.
Thomas, you said before the game that you want to see more aggression. You want to be aggressive, be brave, be offence-minded, which is something you said on a regular basis. The team only had 1 shot on target in the end. I mean, does it feel like the players aren't sometimes taking it on board?
No, I think it's very simple. If you don't perform, you can say all the right things. If you're a little bit out of sync, then you see things like this. When you are on track and in sync, you see the last 3 performances. So that's very simple. If you perform, you keep doing the right thing, then it makes it easy, of course. And then I just think the little small thing that is difficult. We win together, we lose together, but I can't pass the ball on the pitch. So if you lose the ball 25 times, I think it's fair to say that it's pretty difficult to create something.
Does that come into, when you're 2-0 down, you made 3 subs, one of them's Ben Davies, one of them's Joao Pedrinho. I think a lot of fans are hoping for attacking plays, but is that part of the reason? Because you're looking for more of the keeping the ball at that point?
No, I think we had 4 offensive players on the pitch. I think that's fair to say. So I felt that just to go back to the bits before where I say we're disjointed. So if you're disjointed, you can have 11 offensive players on the pitch. It will not help. So you need to be disjointed, be jointed or in sync, and then it helps, and hopefully you can find your way back after that.
With Archie Gray's mistake, is that something you hope obviously he'll learn from as a young player?
Yeah, you know, it's that happens. I've said before, mistakes happens. That of course I'll be irritated about because you would like to avoid it, but he will learn. I think it was as a classic thing you see week in, week out is ball play into one of the two sitters, bounce it out first touch, not take a touch. He will learn from that. I'm pretty sure we'll use one touch next time.
No issue with the goalkeeper with that then? That's
No.
how you want your team to play?
I think you see that every week in the Premier League from every team all over the world. So there's no problem with that.
So there's always a very calm and measured manager in these press conferences after bad results. Are you a bit different in the dressing room with the players, or is it the same kind of?
I think I do everything to control my emotions, which is a hurricane inside me, because of course it's deeply frustrating that we are not doing better today after 3 good performances. I think it's extremely important to be calm and measured, and of course have very, very direct and clear messages at the right time, so they're not in doubt of what I think. Because and very honest about where we are. That's why I was also very honest today. It was a very bad performance. No two ways about that. But also know that to change this will take some time, because you can't. No one want to hear about that. It's just reality. I think the one who have followed the club and the team, I think it's fair to say there's been a few not too consistent performances, and that's the thing we are working very hard on.
Do you have any issue with JDC to come off and throw his jacket about a bit?
You're the third one that said that to me today. I didn't see it. Of course, I will look it back to be aware of it. I think there can be 3 reasons. He can be disappointed with his own performance, the team's performance, disappointed with his snubbed off, and I will ask him about that.
Just more generally, it feels like people would understand the kind of up and down results a bit, you know, but it still feels like the floor of this team is very low, right? Do you agree with that?
The
floor is in.
Oh, the floor. Yeah. I think that is a fair assessment, unfortunately, and that's something we need to work very hard on. That these setbacks can't affect us that much, because I actually think I'm pretty sure when I watched the game, when did we concede the first goal? 28. I think pretty sure when I watch it back, probably not that bad until the first goal. So it can't be one goal that then make it so disjointed for 50 minutes. Just it can't happen. And you can have a day where it's not perfect. How many games have you seen where it's not perfect? And then you find your way into it, and then you maybe win. You draw 1-1 or you win 2-1 second half, where you eat your way into it. So that's just an ongoing work we need to work so hard on.
It's a mental thing, more than that.
I think it's a combination of mental structure, coolness, stick to the game plan. There's a focus.
So you've got kind of obviously trying to bed in all these new ideas, but you're at a club that maybe the average kind of time span of managers hasn't been that long. Do you feel that you'll get time to put everything you want into place?
I can't see why not. I think it's pretty evident that if no one gets the time, no one can turn this around. This is not a quick fix.
Thomas, the Christmas and the New Year is always a hectic schedule. How do you look to navigate this in the next coming weeks?
First and foremost, we have, I think, finally a more or less full week going into Liverpool next time, and then after that we have 8 days into, can't remember, was this Crystal Palace? I think, can't remember. So that gives a little bit of time to train and try to get on top of some of these things. That's also the challenge. Is no complaints, just a fact. When we try to change things with very short time between games, it's just a little bit more tricky. But we need to utilize the time the next 2 weeks massively, and then we have 5 games in short amount of time.
So obviously expecting Matt Wells to still be at the club.
There's definitely a few rumors about that. We will, how can you say, when we know if that will happen or not happen, we will announce something. That's what I'll say.
Thomas, do you think you spoke there about keeping your composure and being calm? Shouldn't the players did that well enough in general? We had the Jennings and I felt
I think that's two small situations. I think in general, no matter what, I think to have that coolness on the pitch and relentless concentration and focus, that's a big thing of being a top team.
So there you go. That was Thomas Frank there on the back of Tottenham Hotspur being well and truly thumped 3-0 up at the City Ground. I'm joined by the wonderful Billie T. I'm joined by Lubo. Of course, Ian Lubin of the Spurs 5. We're joined by Patrick Tyrant back on a post-match show. Pat's delighted. And we're joined by Luke from Spotlight on Spurs, who's been inaugurated into his first season of Last for Spurs. So I've just made up a word there. It's already that time of season where I can't believe we're already here. Let's share some of the live comments we've had during this show, and we'll come on to them as we go as well. Chris Motley says here, Chris, thanks for your comment. Realistically, how many transfer windows will it take to fix this club, regardless who the manager is? A very fair point there. This is a comment here from Prince Axel, who says, big up to everybody out there listening and watching the show. Should we go half for Thiago in January? Igor Thiago. Brentford have priced him at a reasonable price of around 70 million. He feels that's reasonable. He's got 11 goals so far, second only to Haaland. We've had also a comment in here from Noah for Spurs. I refuse to believe that these players are worse than Fulham, Bournemouth, Forest, Sunderland. They are not being coached to their strengths. And Aussie Frank Lover says, it can't be bad managers all the time. There's a deeper issue in this club. These players are mentally weak. We're going to come on to a lot of those points, I've got to say. And listen, thanks again to nearly over 10,500 that are listening and watching the show. Thanks, as always, for incredible support for it. If you can, for us, keep liking, subscribing, hyping to the show. That will be greatly appreciated. We've just heard there from Thomas Frank, who, of course, held his post-match press conference after Forest. I can now tell you, for those that like Thomas Frank, may dislike Thomas Frank, as things stands at the moment, he has moved now to top of the list of being the Premier League favourite to lose his job at Tottenham. So make of that what you will. As things stands at the moment for Tottenham in terms of who are on their potential shortlist, if they are seeking a change, and with Tottenham, you never quite know what they are going to do at the football club. Oliver Glasner is currently the favourite, followed by Marco Silva, Andone Iriola. There's Roberto De Zerbi on there. There's also Michael Carrick, Xavi Hernandez, and just maybe some names that might scream out to you at the moment of potentially where Spurs could turn, may turn. Robbie Keane doing a fine job, of course, over at Ferencvaros. One to keep an eye on. Would Tottenham go for a short-term solution? There's also Francesco Farioli doing a fairly good job over, of course, at Porto. And the one man that continues, I know Billy's going to probably mention in a second, who continues to flirt with his football club, Maurizio Pochettino, who I think we have to make this very, very clear that if there's any possibility of Pochettino coming back to this club before he takes the World Cup, which personally I think will be impossible to happen, I think you're looking at around 17, 18 million in compensation. And God knows what Donald Trump would do to him if he was trying to get out of that job. But I have to also bring to your attention, if you weren't aware, Pochettino was spotted earlier in the week hanging out with a number of Tottenham legends. He just cannot leave us alone. On his Instagram there with the wonderful Chris Hutton, as Ozzy Ardeel is there. And of course, there's Steve Perryman there as well. Can't get away from his Spurs legends. Bill, we'll come to you. You said at the top of the show, Frank's not the man for you. He has warned in that post-match press conference there is no quick fix. You cannot keep changing managers. So, Billy, in your opinion, where do we go to next, Bill? We'll get you to unmute and give us your thoughts about what's next in the soap drama of Tottenham Hotspur.
Firstly, just listen to that press conference there. There is absolutely no charisma whatsoever, is there? There's no inspiration for me there. I think if I was a player listening to... Do you know what it reminds me of? And I say this as a fellow teacher myself. It reminds me of being a parent and listening to your teacher on Parents' Evening. It's got that kind of aura of charisma about it, hasn't it? I don't think he's the right man. In fact, Christmas is in 11 days. I want him out of my club before Christmas. I don't want this guy to ruin my Christmas as well. If anyone's going to steal Christmas from me, it can be the Grinch. I don't want Thomas Frank to steal my Christmas. And then on to the next thing. I don't know where we go, to be honest, mate. But, we're Tottenham Hotspur. We have, essentially boundless amounts of money that we can spend on these kind of things. We pay managers an incredibly high wages. The salaries that we give managers is far beyond anything beyond the rest of the Premier League, not including the other big six clubs. We pay these managers insane amounts of money. So I think we have to be a bit more excited than thinking who's going to come in, who's going to want to come to us. We're Tottenham. We can pay money. We can pay salaries. And at the end of the day, I completely understand. We were talking pre-show, thinking who's going to come in and want to manage these players. But at the end of the day, these people just follow money. It's what they do. They just take salaries. We could attract anyone that we want to of these salaries. People just follow the money. That's the way football is. So, I like to get excited by thinking about who the new managers could be. The people that you list on the mention there. There's some exciting managers around. Pochettino can't leave us alone. I think for me, at the end of the day, that's what we're all chasing, isn't it? We're chasing that Pochettino feeling that we had, that connection that we had going into every game, being excited, watching attacking football every single week, knowing that whoever came to White Hart Lane will blow them away, 4-0, 3-0, not scared of Arsenal, not scared of Chelsea, beat them at home. That's what we're chasing.
To ask you, and I think you're aware of this, we love those Pochettino days. I love those Pochettino days, so do you. I think you're also acutely aware the squad there wouldn't be one of this Tottenham team.
Yeah.
There's not one Tottenham player that would get in that Pochettino team. But do you honestly believe with a change of manager, you would get more out of the current squad? Do you believe that?
I think so, mate, because when we signed Thomas Frank, we were, labelled as a coach, a player improvement. I can't name a single player that's improved under him. We were talking about, I hate to keep bringing up Ange because it's what we always do, but the fact is he was replaced Ange, so it kind of comes naturally sometimes. And everyone was saying, well, Thomas Frank is more of a player improver, he's more of a coach. These players don't look like they're being coached. Today didn't look like they were being coached at all. There was only one coach side today, and that was Sean Dyche's side. So, I understand the squad needs serious work. I'm not saying that, we should be competing for the title or anything like that, but we should be able to beat the likes of Forest, Fulham, Bournemouth at home. We're Tottenham Hotspur. We spent an awful lot of money. Thomas Frank had 4 players this summer. They're on over 100 grand a week. Xavi Simons, Kudus, Palhinha, and Kolo Muani. These are players that you need to be getting more out of. So I'm looking forward. I don't want Thomas Frank to be my manager anymore. And I just think whoever comes in, I want to see a bit more excitement.
Give me a name, Bill. Give me a name right now. If you're going to sack him right now and replace him, give me one name.
I'm going to go for Vincenzo Italiano of Bologna. Really exciting attacking manager. We've got the Italian link with Paratici as well, so hopefully he can get us to do the call there. But he's a really good balance of relentless attacking football and a bit more defensive solidarity as well. So that's my pick to be manager. I don't think it will happen, but we can dream.
Okay. Listen, let's come over to you, Lubo. Lubo, I know you're in the camp, and I think I also understand where you're coming from. The players, they're nowhere near good enough. I think everybody does acknowledge it out there, right? I think there's an acknowledgement, a wide acknowledgement that this group of players are probably, and I mean it's with all due respect, I don't want to disrespect, players that I know a lot of players, coaching staff watch this show. But I have to also bring to the point that after the 10 games, Lubo, at the start of the season, we had the best defence in the league. These are the same group of players, despite the injuries, let's be clear, that took on PSG and into the last seconds of the Super Cup final, took them all the way to penalties, right? You can make what you make of that last 10 minutes. Now, Jason is still angry about the way we managed that last 10 minutes against PSG. But we did beat Man City away. We did beat West Ham away. We've beaten Leeds away, Everton away. What has happened, Lubo, to some of the nature of those performances? And why are we not seeing that grit and determination right now? Can you put your finger on as to why and who's to blame for that?
Well, if you're talking about blame, we've had 25 years without owners who want proper footballing success. Let's start there. Who knows if these guys are going to carry it on, and just use the fans as cash cows, just use the club as a means for making a lot of money. Who knows? Hopefully, listen, they've rejected 3 offers of intent. Let's see them show ambition. Because we need God knows how many players. I'm listening to Billy and I'm thinking, whatever manager comes in, look at the players that he's got to work with. We have had 10 years since that transfer window, just before Poch's second year, when he brought in Toby, Dele and Sonny. Since then, it's been pretty much a shit show for 10 years. And Frank is now inheriting a complete mess. We brought in 2 winners in Jose and Conte, who should have been backed. Again, Levy and Enoch didn't back him. What a golden opportunity that was. You know, you had Harry Kane, who is world class, and they refused to build a team around him. So we are left with the worst squad that I can remember for, God knows, 20 plus years. So it's brilliant. Bring in the guy from Bologna. What do you think he's going to do with this lot? This lot are not good enough. Players who can't even pass 5 yards to another teammate. That's nothing to do with tactics. It's nothing to do with systems. It's nothing to do with Frank or any manager. These players are not good enough. I said this.
Lubo, do you think? Sorry to interrupt, Lubo. Do you think that comes from the manager though? Because when we look at half of the teams in the Premier League, we've definitely got better players than them. 100%.
Have we?
Yeah, we have.
Van der Ven and Romero are 2 of the best defenders in the Premier League.
Yeah,
Porro is highly touted as well. Back 4.
Yeah,
you've got Palhinha,
you've got a very good player. Palhinha, yeah.
I'm gonna let Lubo finish his point, and we'll come to Pat. Lubo, carry on.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry,
Lubo,
sorry.
Go, Lubo.
My bad.
Carry on.
How many of these players will get in the top 4 or 5? How many? Hardly any.
We're 12th now, though.
Do you think, Lubo, at the moment, our position, does that reflect the squad that we've got, Lubo? Do you think sitting where we are now, 11th in the table, we're bang mid-table, what are we? We're 8 to 9 points off the relegation zone. We are 7-8 points off the current top 4, top 5. Is that where we should be based on that squad for you, Lubo? Or should the manager be getting more out of this group, in your opinion?
Should he be getting more? Yes, he should be inspiring them. But you know what? There's only so much you can do if you haven't got the squad, if you haven't got the players. Look, we're missing Maddison, we're missing Kulusevski. I'm sure performances would improve with those 2 in the team. We're lacking a top number 8 who can put his foot on the ball and direct the game and control the game. Number 9, we're missing badly. We're missing a 10. Because
we're missing so many. We are missing so many players. But I suppose the question to ask you, Lubo, is with the current fixtures coming up in what you see coming for Tottenham, we've got, of course, Liverpool on the horizon, Crystal Palace on the horizon. We've got, I think, for me, and I think it's a lot for a lot of fans out there, a massive, massive game in the FA Cup at home to Aston Villa. Where the mood was when that draw got brought out, you think, God, got to play Villa at home. My worry at the moment is the mood, despite the recent run of results. I feel he's so low at the moment. I can only speak for me personally. I can't speak for everybody out there. But for me personally, the mood, Lubo, let you come back in, we'll go to Pat, is so low at the moment. Do you still believe Thomas Frank is the right man for this build based on what you are seeing right now with what he's got to work with? Is he the right man for you?
Listen, the manager's the first to go. You can't get rid of 20 players. And so the manager goes. And if we get a good hiding from Liverpool next week, I can see a repeat of the situation with Liverpool where we lost 5-0 at home and AVB was out the next day.
Yeah,
I can see that. If that happens, then for me personally, I think the only person who can come in, and he won't come in till the summer, who can unite the fan base is Pochettino. Remember, the side weren't playing that well. He got 5th place in the end of his first season, but they weren't playing that. They weren't playing that well in the first season.
No, but I think what he did do, Lubo, as you know, he got massive, massive credit in the bank by, of course, beating Chelsea, beating Arsenal, and I think those derbies are so important. I think to let you come back and finish, Lubo, before we go to Pat. I think, Lubo, you'd understand that because of the manner of what we put out in terms of the Arsenal and Chelsea games, and even just the XG alone before you even think about the performances. Lubo, we lost a lot of fans with those 2 performances alone. So it's very hard then to try and turn the mood around. And I agree with Billy. When I hear this man in press conferences, look, I think he's a lovely guy. I think he's a likable chap. But I'm looking at him, I'm just thinking, I'm not sure you get us. I'm not sure you get this football club. And I think you've said this, Lubo, as well. We are a big football club. We're not an elite football club, but we are a big football club. And I worry that the manager, is he a mid-table manager? Lubo, let you finish off and we'll go to Pat.
Well, is he a mid-table manager? I wanted Frank to be given a good run, firstly, because I saw at a mid-table team how he brought players on like Watkins, like Tony and Buemo, Visser, Sade, Damsgaard. You know, he did a good job with those players.
A very good job. A very good job.
And sometimes you get some really good managers who are mid-table, regardless of which country they're in, and they just need that opportunity at a big club. So I looked at that and I was so sick of watching. And the reason I'm seeing some comments, you know, Lubo, do I think the players weren't good enough under Ange? The reason why I wanted Ange gone was the system of play, and he wouldn't change. And we were ripped open. We were left wide open. He was very innovative. He tried a system that worked in other countries at lower levels, and it didn't work here, and he didn't recognise it, and it left us very, very vulnerable. And look at the league season last season. So for me, that wasn't sustainable, and that's why I wanted Ange out. But I recognised that these players, I thought there'd be an immediate, I thought would be a much bigger improvement under Frank. I'll be honest with you. But then you just look at the players are just not, they're just not good enough, Ricky.
Okay.
It's just not good enough. You know, and
so, Lubo, you feel, just to let you finish off, you feel for you needs more time. Needs more time for you, Lubo?
Christ, I don't know. I just don't know. For me,
if I asked you right now, if you had an opportunity to keep or swap, what are you doing, Lubo?
I'd get an interim in. Bring Pochettino back in the summer.
Okay. So right now you're hitting that button, you'd do an interim. Give me a name for an interim very quickly. We've got to go to Pat. A name for an interim very quickly. Who are you going for?
Crikey, I don't know. That's the problem. That's the problem. Bringing in an interim. I mean, you got Xavi Hernandez on there. You know,
I'll take him as an interim.
Yeah,
I think like you said, when he sees one training session, he'll bolt.
He could look at today's. He'd look at a video of today's game and see how many times we gave the ball away. And we cannot make a 5-yard pass. You know, this is like a world away from what he's used to. It's all down. Listen, as I said before, you can have your different tactics, different systems. The players are out there on the pitch. They make the decisions. It's the players' responsibility to get the ball from A to B, always.
Okay. Listen, we've got, so as things stands, we've got Billy that would right now sack. We've got Lubo that's saying he'd bring an interim in, so he wants Frank out. We'll come to you, Pat. Look, like we've said, you know, quite interestingly for those that weren't aware, Frank did say pre-match that Tottenham will be active in the market in January and made it very, very clear he wants signings early. We, again, just to be clear, appreciate the fact is without the chief creators, no James Maddison, no Dejan Kulusevski, and of course, no Dominic Solanke, right? These players have not obviously played, Solanke's played once, I think, or twice this season, but they are all genuine mitigating factors. But there is pressure building right now on this manager. Pat, I'll come to you. What's the right thing to do? What do you think we should do?
Yeah, going back off of what Lubo said, and then we can build off of that. Obviously, Lubo is adamant that the players aren't good enough, but I do feel, of course, there's a lot of improvements in the squad. We all know that. Richarlison should not be starting. Our regular week in and week out number 9 at a club as big as Tottenham. He's nowhere near good enough. And then you look at even players like Bentancur, who flattered to deceive. Vicario, for me, he's not good enough to be a starting goalkeeper at a club that is trying to get into the top 4, top 5 and really contest for trophies, you know, year in and year. He's just not good enough. He always leaves his defenders short. He makes too many mistakes. And when you're looking at goalkeepers at the top elite level, they don't make the mistakes that Vicario makes week in and week out. Of course, goalkeepers now, they under a lot of pressure. They're forced to play out from the back. They're forced to overplay sometimes. So you will see even at Alisson, a Donnarumma, even a David Raya, they make some mistakes, of course, but not at the consistent level that Vicario makes. So he needs to be upgraded. But when I look at the team, and I hear Lubo saying they're not good enough, I do think that there is a lot of good players in this team where if a better manager came in, like Billy said, you would see better results and more consistent performances where maybe they would allow the players to express themselves and play. I look at Jed Spence. I think he's a very good player. I look at Pedro Porro, and I know he's not good defensively, but going forward, he is a good player. So if you look at what Jurgen Klopp did with a Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, you knew he was not good defensively, but you played to his strengths and then you doubled up defensively on whoever was on Porro's side, and that allowed that right back to flourish. That's a simple tactic that they could do on Porro's side so he doesn't get beaten week in and week out. Mickey van der Ven and Romero, two of the best centre-backs in Europe for me, and they would get into most teams comfortably. Then you look at the midfielders, and I think Paulinho is one of the best number sixes around. It's really weird because he's not really playing at the moment, and Frank prefers Bentancur over him, which is quite odd. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But then you look at Archie Gray. For me, the jury's still out. I know the kid's got talent and it takes time, but then you look at what happened today and you just kill the kid's confidence when you allow Vicario to do that to him. That's never going to help a youngster who's trying to bed into the team. Look at that pass. That's suicide. How is that? Go back one frame, Ricky, where you actually see him pass to that. How is that okay? There you go. Why would you do that? Just clear your lines and start again. That is madness. And then you heard, what is it? You heard Frank defend it and say, no, it's okay. It happens all the time. No, it doesn't. Other teams don't do that, and especially when they know it's so easy to play against, because every team knows we're going to do that. So you always see the two strikers just crashing the box, waiting for us to pass out, and then it's an easy win and essentially a goal when they win the ball that high up the pitch. But then, and then you go back to the players. Kudus is a very good player. Wasn't great today. Sometimes he does take too many touches, and I do get that with your flair players and players that are trying. They will naturally make the most mistakes, but he's a top winger, and we're getting to most teams. And then, you look at obviously even Destiny Udogie, didn't talk on him, a bit injury prone, but still a very good player. So there are players in there that you can build off of. And then obviously you've got Tell. I still think Tell's a player. And needs more time.
The question is, Pat, to ask you on this point, the players, is this manager the right manager that's going to unlock their ability long term? Because right now, this is what he's got to work with. Yes, he'll be supported in January, but I think we also need to make this clear with regards to January. I think Spurs are only going to be able to change, if possible, maximum 2-3 players with relation to the Champions League registration. So for people thinking we can overhaul and bring 5, 6 or 7 players in, it's just not going to happen.
It doesn't happen. It never happens.
Bringing players in, it takes time for them to settle. And let's be honest about it with Tottenham. I hate to bring the mockers on it, but very rarely I've been, maybe apart from the time we obviously under Conte, we brought in Bentancur and Kulusevski that accelerated our push for a top 4 finish. It's quite rare you have players that come in and immediately hit the ground running. So the question that's got to be asked right now,
well,
Pat,
I'd say Van der Vaart, but that's
and Van der Vaart, fair, and Van der Vaart as well. But the question to be asked right now, Pat, but the question to ask now is for you: do you think, with relation to what Thomas Frank has got to work with, forget the injuries for a second, because let's be honest about it. Last season, we didn't afford Ange Postecoglou a lot of credit or time when it came to injuries. We judged it purely on what we were seeing, the results, the eye test, and that's how we judge things. We acknowledge the injuries. We're doing the same under Frank, but we have to acknowledge what we are seeing with our own eyes. Do you believe, Pat, Thomas Frank is the right man to lead this build from what you are seeing right now and what you're hearing from him?
No, not at all. Not at all. Billy hit it spot on. The guy has no charisma and doesn't give me any confidence that he can turn it around. And then I just look at the performances. Even if you didn't know about the stats, even if you didn't know about the XG, if you didn't know about the chances we create, if you didn't know about how, just look at what happened today. And we were second best in every division that you look at on the pitch against a Nottingham Forest team who are not good. Let's be honest. They're not a great team. And I just look at it and I think that, unfortunately for the summer, I thought this guy would come in and really transform the Archie Grays, the Bergvalls, even get a tune out of Richarlison, get a better tune out of Jed Spence, Brennan Johnson. These are guys he liked and wanted to have at his team, and you thought he would really come in and coach them and make them better, like he did with your Wissers, your Tonys, Imbremos, Shardays. The list goes on. And we've not seen any of that here right now. And then I look at the fact that we've got a January transfer window coming up. I don't trust this guy with more funds. I'm sorry. And it sounds mad as well because it's just we're in the same cycle, but I don't trust him. I've seen more than enough to know he's not the guy. So no, I wouldn't, Ricky. I don't believe that he's the guy to take us forward. And I hate the fact that I'm here saying this again, but I just can't see it from what I've seen. And the fact that how flat we are, the away fans are booing him now as well and booing the team. And when you lose the away fans, you always know you're in trouble. The away fans are there through thick and thin, singing from minute 1 to minute 90. And when they can say that's not good enough, that's when you know that essentially it's turned already.
Yeah. I think what's also very true, and again, I've seen this coming over to you, Luke, is that even if people believe the players are all poor, you can also still realise that the manager is an issue. You know, that can also be true. They're not mutually exclusive, right? I mean, I think we have to make that very, very clear. I mean, look, we've had again another day or another game where Xavi Simons appeared isolated in that number 10 role, Luke. You know, no one at all really comes out with a huge degree of credit from that game. You know, that triple change for Spurs with Bergvall, Polina and Davies coming on, you know, being 2 down and bringing those players on as first changes. I know many people suggest that should be a sackable offence in itself. But I think the biggest question to ask, Luke, because I keep saying this point, is that if you're going to have to go through yet more pain and be told, be patient and wait, which to be fair, the new brand of ENIC 2.0, the Levy's, I'm about to say Levy's children, the Lewis children, who are not youngsters in themselves, they're telling us they wanted to use the Europa League win, the final, as a springboard for more success. So as fans, we're being told that was just the start. We're going to see more. But right now, we're sitting mid-table. I think it's fair to say we've got a pretty much bang average mid-table squad. Is this man the right man, Luke, in your opinion, Thomas Frank, to lead us through this build?
So I'm going to give you my answer, and then I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit with my second answer as well, right? So, first of all, while Ange was still here, I released a video on Ange and what I thought should happen at Spurs, and I said if Ange goes, when we need to bring in a Champions League level manager, and Thomas Frank isn't that. I said I think Thomas Frank's a very, very good manager. But if I was a player, if I was looking at a project, which is what Spurs were doing, we were saying we were going into a new phase. We've just won the Europa League. We're now going to become this huge football club. Appointing Thomas Frank does not inspire me. I do not sit there and go, yeah, this is the man to lead us. This is the man that if we didn't win the Europa League should have been the man to lead us in my eyes, but not the man to lead us into a Champions League thing. And also we look at it because we're Spurs and we just look at everything so isolated. But if we just take a step back a minute and look at it as someone else, as look at it from an Arsenal, but even go beyond that, look at it Inter Milan, look at Real Madrid. Do they sit there and go, oh, Spurs have appointed Thomas Frank, that's going to change everything there? Like sometimes you need to just, like we said about Van der Vaart, going and getting a Van der Vaart, going and getting a star player, everyone kind of went, wow, that's put Spurs on the map. And Spurs have always had a character or a player to be able to exceed not just Tottenham, but like the Premier League almost. Bow, Kane, Sons, even Ange's character brought eyes to Tottenham.
I think, Luke, it's a key point to ask you there. This is another thing I keep hearing, and you've just said it there. Whatever you think about Ange, whether you like Ange, whether you dislike Ange, whether you like the brand of football, whether you don't like the brand of football, there was an aura about that man, right? There was an aura about him.
Yep.
Thomas Frank, I mean, with all due respect, I'll let you come back in. He looks more like an accountant than a manager. I don't mean to be rude, but it doesn't inspire me with leadership. Is that fair? Let you carry on.
Again, it's what the remit is, right? If the remit's come in and make us solid, then that's what he's here to do, and that's what he ticks all the boxes. But if he's here to go and challenge, like we was told, he's here to challenge for everything. He's here to play attacking football, and that's never been his remit. So it doesn't make sense to me why we do this, why we bring in managers and tell them to play a different way to what got them to the club. It doesn't make any sense. And going back to the point about him being a really good mid-table manager, I said the same thing, ironically, about Daesh. Well, Daesh done a great job at Burnley. That doesn't mean he gets a top 4 job. It could mean that he's just very capable of doing that job. So I just find it a bit strange. I looked at the stats just now as well, and nearly over 17.5% of the goals that Forest scored this season were against Spurs. They're the second they're the second lowest scorers in the league, even with those 3 goals, and only Wolves have scored less. So, and when you look at that defence, everyone said that defence under Ange was absolutely disgraceful and everything else. And actually, when you look at the starting back 5 that played, he had a very, very good record. They just never played together. It was injured so much. But I think that's part of the problem, is that we constantly keep going back and forth to these different styles and these different tactics. So do I think Frank should stay in? I wouldn't have appointed Frank in the first place. That's what I wouldn't have done. Now he's here. Do I think we should change it? I think it really comes to where the club is deciding to go here, right? Because Forest are an actual great example of this. They had Nuno. They didn't want Nuno for whatever reason, and they decided to go the complete other side of the coin and go from Nuno football to Ange. It didn't work, and it was never going to, because none of the profiles fit what he needed. And guess what? They sacked him and brought in a manager that plays very similar to Nuno, and he's getting them back playing again. That's the problem, is that all of these players are fitted to play in a style, fitted to play an understanding of what's required from them. And when we keep going from one side of the coin to the other, it gets confusing. We sign players that don't fit the systems, and this is one of the reasons why everyone says these players are not good enough. I don't think that's the case. I think there are some of them that are good enough, and there are others that are not. Every squad has that. If you go through, I've seen people list out the Villas and list out the Forests, and you're naming all of their best players, but name their worst players, and our players are better than their worst players. So you have to balance it. You can't just say, oh, well, Nottingham Forest have 3 players that get in our team, so therefore they're a better team. That's not how it works. So I think we need to have an idea of what we want to become. And I've said this for ages. We need to identify, what do we want to do? We want to be an attacking style. We want to play pressing. We want to play, and you go and get the best players, the best managers that fit that style. Stop looking at who's the best available manager at this period of time, and then we'll go and get them, and then we'll buy a squad that fits them and then change them after 18 months. The average tenure of a Premier League manager is about 18 months to 2 years. So let's not look at what we're going to do in 2 years and how we're going to spend hundreds of million. Let's look at, we've got an idea, we're going to go with it. If it's Pochettino, it's Pochettino. If it's whoever it is, identify the style, identify the play. And then when we're talking about that player doesn't fit, well, actually, if you've got a certain style, it might not fit under that manager, but the next manager will fit. So I think that's what we need to do. So I think it is a little bit unfair on Frank, because he's been brought in and we have got a bit of a mishmash squad. However, he should be getting better than what he's currently getting. So, but I think the idea has to come from the very top, what they want to do and where they want to go with this.
Okay, but Luke, I'm asking you now, just very quickly on this before I come. I know Lubo's keen to get back in. We're going to bring Lubo in. We're going to have Billy, and then we're going to Pat. That we have to go for our next break. Luke, I'm asking you right now, do you think we should keep him, in your opinion? Do we keep Thomas Frank right now for the build, or would you change right this second?
I would keep him at this moment in time. I don't think there's enough options out there to go, yep, definitely that works for us. So I would keep him for the time being, but it's almost like a last chance saloon. Things need to change. Like, you need to start looking at playing, especially more attacking football. We can't be playing this sort of way.
Are you asking him, Luke, to play a brand of football that, let's be honest about it, Thomas Frank, and I know we keep saying this and he keeps saying this about playing front-footed, aggressive, winning duels. You know, with all due respect, he's a pragmatic manager. We've hired a pragmatic manager. Are we asking him to change when that's not his style, is it?
But this is part of the problem. I said that straight away. As soon as he had his first interview, he's saying, I'm going to play attacking football. I'm like, well, you haven't done that ever. And also, going back to what Patrick said about passing out from the back, the whole idea that people don't just pass out for the back for the fun of it. This is not just, oh, we'll just pass out for the back. The reason you do that is so that you bring their press on, and then you can go in behind. You can either do it quickly by going long, or you can do it by you've beat the press, and therefore you push up as a team. We don't do that. Even if we beat a press, we don't pass quickly. And if we go long, it's never an accurate ball. It's always just kind of like a loopy one over the top. So we lose. So I don't understand you. If you're playing out from the back, you're doing it for a specific reason. The person who started that was Pep, because he wanted people onto him so they can get in behind. And we don't seem to do that. So I think at the moment he's kind of caught between a rock and hard place. I think also the Bentancur Palhinha thing, it's almost like he's listened to the fans. And if he's listened to the fans, then he's not the manager for Spurs. I don't say what you want about Ange. Ange was going to do it his way, whether you liked it, I liked it, he liked it. He was doing it his way because that's the way that he. So I think that's another part of it. But I don't think there's options out there at this moment in time that we should go and replace.
Lubo, now you're keen to come back in. Lubo, we're going to quickly go to you, go to Pat, go to Billy, and then we are going to go for this next quick break. Lubo, come back in for us. What do you want to say on that point Luke's made? And we'll get you to you. Go for it, Lubo. Oh,
I think
we gotcha.
I think the club's a mess. It's a real shambles at the moment. So it starts at the top. Either the owners want success for the club or sell the club. There is no points. You know, we've just gone from manager to manager. You've got a revolving managerial door under ENIC. There's no stability at the club. We've won 2 trophies in 25 when all the other big clubs are winning 10s, 15s, 20 trophies in that time. And this is a big club. We're not elites. Elite clubs are the clubs that have won 20 league titles, like United, like Liverpool, Ajax, Benfica, Juventus, Real Madrid, Barcelona. These are the elite teams. We are a big club. And first of all, they've got to get it right at the top. Just touching on to what Luke was saying. First of all, and I've been saying this for months, you've got to have an Ajax type system at the club. You've got to have, we play a certain brand of football. Okay, maybe it goes back to the 60s with Nicholson, the Spurs way, but you look at the players we've had since the Spurs double team, and you look at the Klinsmans and the Linekers and the Gascoignes and the Hoddles and the Sheringhams, etc., etc. So I'm not even talking about the 70s where we had some super players like, you know, just going back Jimmy Greaves, Gilzine, Chivers, Peters. You know, we've had some cracking players, Chrissy Waddle. So we've been used to watching flair players and sort of near coming on. We've had the occasional player during ENIC like Bale, who excites the crowd. If you get players in who know the club and understand the club, the way that Ajax had people like Overmars in, as, just as an example. So you're going out and you're bringing in players to play a certain style. Every manager that comes in, we have a change of manager all the time. Just touching on what Luke was saying, and I said this the other week, every manager comes in and they've got players from different systems. If Frank's not going to play wing backs that Porro and Udogie were brought in for, then sell them. Sell them because they're no good as fullbacks. They're not good enough as fullbacks. You know, if you want to get a good left back, a proper left back, go and get an Anthony Robinson if he comes back and he gets over his injury. Rico Henry looked very good when he came on for Brentford last week. Go and get proper forward. You got Spence at right back. Porro can't defend. They breezed past him, you know, in the build up for the third goal. He plays some decent football. Porro is good technically. He's not a right back. So Frank's come in and he's inherited this unbalanced squad. Every manager comes in and finds another manager's players. Some suit the system, some don't suit the system. We're never going to get a proper team with proper players that fit the system unless we actually organise it from the top. You start with owners who are desperate for success. They will do whatever it takes to, within reason, without bankrupting the club, obviously. They have got to make sure that the club is in safe hands and the club is organised from top to bottom. Mansour came in at City, brought in the guy from Barcelona straight away within a year. You know, and it's gone from there. We are pissing in the wind. The way the club has been run, particularly since, you know, and I saw a comment last 6 months of Pochettino. Well, yes, Poch wanted a rebuild. Levy wouldn't give him it.
Yeah,
because the players were getting older and the legs weren't there to play the high pressing game that Poch brought through successfully.
And to say, he warned us it was coming, Lubo. He said there's a painful rebuild coming. Are we going to back him? Are we going to support him? Poch warned us of that. Lubo, just quickly on this point, before we do go round, we do need to go for this next break. You know, if Spurs are to keep minimum hopes of trying to qualify for Europe, it feels the next 4 matches for Tottenham are going to be absolutely crucial in terms of this season. That's before you reach, of course, Spurs in the FA Cup against Aston Villa. So, of course, we've got a trip to Liverpool coming up, of course, at the weekend. We're then, of course, going to be facing Crystal Palace away on December the 28th. You've then got Brentford on New Year's Day. That's coming around fast. And then Sunderland come on January the 4th. I feel like we've got to have at least a couple of wins in there if the mood is going to turn. Is your fear, Lubo, if he gets beaten by Liverpool, you think he could be gone?
If we get hammered like AVB was at home 5-0, I'm worried that they will pull the plug. if the players aren't responding, if he's lost the dressing room, he's lost the dressing room.
Do you think he's lost the dressing room, Lubo, with some of the
honestly,
players'
at this
attitudes?
stage, I didn't think so at Newcastle. I didn't think so at home in the last 2 weeks. Today, I looked at it. I mean, there have been too many games, Arsenal, Chelsea, you know, and the players are coming out and apologising when it's not good enough, it's not acceptable, this lack of effort.
They're in the team.
These
They're
guys,
part of it.
these guys are being paid a fortune.
Yep.
Every week. Where is their professional pride?
No idea.
Forget not being able to give a 5-yard pass. Where is their pride to go out and give 100%?
Yeah,
just for themselves, just so they can walk in and look in the mirror and say, "I've done my best."
But this is always the problem, Lubo. I mean, come over to you, Pat. I think the biggest problem is we're going to go with Billie and Luke, and then we are going to go for this next break. The biggest problem is, I feel, is that it's always related back to the manager and the ownership. Which, don't get me wrong, they are two big key cogs in this wheel, but the players seem to always evade a lot of blame. And I don't think it should be the case here. I think we've seen a lot of mediocre performances from players. I think they can just get away with it because the manager always takes the blame. I think it's very important that on this show we hold them as accountable as Thomas Frank, as what the board are going to do. Because I think with regards to obviously, of course, with regards to the Lewis family, the kids that are in there now, I think they've got 2 windows, and I'm saying January is a tough window, but the summer to really prove they mean business here. I don't want to speak for Billie, but I'm sure change for Spurs will be, I'm sure, stepping up and ramping up plans to really try and support the fans out there that want to see this club be successful. And bless me, I don't want to speak for Lubo, but see this club win a league title whilst he's still here with us, bless his heart. Pat, very quickly for you, in terms of what we've got coming, those games, can Frank turn this around? Or do you feel the same, that Liverpool game, if he doesn't win it, could be gone? Or not, or give us a performance at least, shall I say?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, you know, the part you said about holding the players accountable, I think the fans are starting to, I don't think it's just a manager issue. We can see that these players aren't good enough. A lot of fans, you know, have been on Vicario's back, not in a negative way, but we can understand that the guy's not been good enough. When you see stats that say he's accountable or at fault for 72% of the goals that we've conceded this season, and he's made the most errors leading to goals in the Premier League by a long shot. We as fans can see that, and we're aware of that, you know, and there's murmurs coming out, Vicario's not happy in England and is assessing his options of going back to Italy. So be it, you know, we don't need players like that if they're going to cry, blame everyone else apart from themselves, and essentially throw the team and the fans under the bus. There was also talks of the fans now making it hard for the players because we're not, you know, at one and we're not support. Like, yeah, exactly.
What a crap that is.
Exactly.
They're in a huddle. And what a crap.
Yeah. Oh, we have to congregate in the middle of the pitch and walk off together so we protect each other. It's just all nonsense,
today,
man.
couldn't even get that right. Didn't even know where they were.
And then they all stopped. Then they all started walking together. It's all nonsense. And I think the fans, we can see that. You know, you can't kid a kidder. We know. And Lubo said it correctly. Like, even if you're not at the races, give 100%, man. Forest looked at it as soon as they hit the post. I was like, wow, we're in trouble today. You could just feel it. They were literally attacking every second ball, winning every 50-50, just looked sharper, quicker, and more at it. And there's been so many games this season where we've just not, and I don't know what's going on. Is that the manager? Is that the players not play? It's a weird one, but we just don't have any fight or backbone. And going back to your initial question, yeah, if the Liverpool result is a bad one, then I do fear that they will literally just throw the axe at him. And it's a shame because yeah, it's a big one because, like Luke said, in the summer, I wouldn't have said Thomas Frank was my number 1 pick. But then when I started looking at it and I understood what he'd done and where he took Brentford and the players he's improved, and I got excited and thought, you know what, maybe this guy is the guy for the long term, for the build. And it's not always about the fancy name; it's about the guy that can actually grow with the club and also deserves a chance to step up and prove himself. And so far, he hasn't. And maybe there'll be some fans that say, oh, it's only 3 or 4 months. It's only December. Give him time. But the problem is the performances and the results are not there. Usually you either have one or the other. Right now, we're getting neither. Yep. Sometimes you can not have a good performance XG-wise and you don't look good attacking right, but you can still get results. Or sometimes the performances could be great, but the results aren't there. But right now, we're seeing neither. And that's where the problem lies. So, yeah, if we don't get any results in the next couple, I mean, he's already under pressure. Let's be honest. He's already under pressure. But
Look,
if the results don't go well in the next
Yeah.
couple, then yeah, he will be sacked,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. We're going to go, Luke. We're going to close with Billy, then we are going to go for this final break of the show. Luke, very quickly, do you have the same vibe that if we don't see at least a performance against Liverpool, maybe part whatever result we might see, Liverpool are typically now finding themselves in form as they come to us. I think they're 4-5 unbeaten now. Luke, gut feeling for you? What do you think happening in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I completely agree. Performance means just as much as the points at this moment in time, because at least with a performance, even if you go and lose to Liverpool, there's no disgrace to losing to Liverpool. But if you see a performance and you can see where we're looking to go, then, and that's what we were saying about the last two results, right? Clean sheets, we was taking more shots. It wasn't just about the level of opposition. It was about, or we were looking to do the right sort of things. And in terms of the huddle, that's how organised we were on the pitch. So you might as well carry that on to the half time, right? One person over there where he shouldn't be, one person over there where he shouldn't be, and we're straight down the middle. So it kind of followed the theme, really. We couldn't even get that right. So I definitely feel like it's the performance that absolutely needs to step up, because, as I say, no disgrace losing to Liverpool or to Palace, in fairness. But you have to show a want to be there, and put in the performance. If they made as much effort on the pitch as they did at getting together as a big huddle to show that they were together, then the fans wouldn't be moaning. They wouldn't be booed off the pitch. They'd be celebrating.
Okay, thanks so much, Bill. Very quickly with you as well. You agree on that point with regards to, in terms of coming up fixture-wise, Liverpool on the horizon, what's going to save him long term? Do we need to start seeing a lot more consistent performances over a course of time here? Because my worry is that, are we just getting to that point now where it's kind of every other game where it's a stay of execution? You know, we've turned a corner, but suddenly, I mean, it's like you said, there's an oncoming train. Do you think, Bill, with what we've got to come, is it just kind of every performance now is going to be analysed and scrutinised as being the final game? Are we at that point already here for you?
Yeah, I think we're at that point already, and I think the answer to your question is, what I've been saying for the last few weeks is, Tottenham fans, we just need something to believe in. Like, we just need to see something on the pitch or something about the players to believe in. And right now, there's nothing. And Lubo is right. We're not seeing it from the players. And I think, in general, what Lubo was saying, it all stems from weak leadership over the last 25 years. Like, there's no identity at this club anymore. No. Under Pochettino, we had a real identity, young players fighting for the shirt, aggressive football, taking on anyone in our home ground of White Hart Lane. It's unbelievable. And in the 5, 6, 7 years preceding that, we've lost it completely. And that stems from the horrific ownership that we've seen in the last few years. We've lost our identity and it's gone. There's nothing to cling on to at the moment. Until that comes back, I think every manager will be fall into the same traps. We need something to believe in, and right now, there's nothing.
There isn't. Look, let's hear from one of the two apologies that we've had during post-game, Pedro Porro, who talks to Spurs play on the back of that defeat against Nottingham Forest. Let's hear from Pedro Porro.
Pedro, thanks for joining us. I know it's difficult. Your face says it all. Just tell us what happened today.
I don't know. I think especially in start the game well, but after the mistake for the arch, it's fine because this is football. In this moment, we need focus in the game because you lose 1-0 only. But I think it's today for me everything. I say before every duels, every second ball, intensity in the pitch. I think today. It's difficult. You see the game after the game, but I think it's this every duel, every second ball. You need 100% in the Premier League.
How do we stop performances like that happening? Because that's the way forward, isn't it, Pedro?
But I think especially in the Premier, every game is difficult. No, you need the focus. Say you before, and now we focus in the next game because it's every game is important. No?
Well, the players will get together now and talk about this, and it's Liverpool next weekend, so it's a big game.
Yeah, of course. I think. My teammates is disappointed today. Now focusing in the next game in the home with the fans, the fans. I think sorry for today. Thank you for the support away. It's incredible always. We go again.
So there you go. That was Pedro Porro there on the back of Spurs being well and truly thumped of course, up at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest 3, Tottenham Hotspur 0. We're joined by Billie T. We're joined by Patrick Tyrant back on the show. We're joined by Lura at the Spurs 5. We're joined by Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. Thanks as always to the over 12,500 that are listening, watching the show live. Thank you as always for your incredible support for Last One on Spurs. If you can kindly keep liking, subscribing to the show, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm asked a question here from Takutsa Memrabido, who says, quick question, Ricky, does our club hierarchy listen to the podcast because you guys are talking facts? Look, I can tell you, I think it's well known that Spurs will be doing their due diligence across a lot of different Tottenham podcasts out there, and will be, I'm sure, taking a lot of views. And I'm not sitting there saying that they're making a decision based on what fans are saying. But listen, Spurs hear and see everything with regards to what happens online. I think people are aware of that in general, whether it's for good or for bad. So look, again, we are only fans, right? We have our opinions. We have no control or influence around what is going to happen inside, outside, around the football club. But we are here together for our love of Spurs and why these gentlemen give up so much of their spare time to come on the show, which we're internally grateful for. I will just share an incredible stat. And again, thanks so much to the love we get on this show. I think, again, we're the most listened to, most watched Tottenham Hotspur podcast for a fourth year running. So listen, thank you as always to the incredible audience that make this show what it is, because without you, it would not be possible. And I think we've had so many nearly moments as Spurs fans in the last however many years that I think we all truly hoped and felt that trophy would be the springboard to success. I think there was a acute awareness that we were going to have to go through some form of change, but it worries and I think concerns a lot of people that where Spurs find themselves right now in terms of that Premier League table, they are bang mid-table. They're actually 11th at the moment, 22 points as things stand. They're only 5-6 points off the current top 5, but they're also, again, likewise the same off the relegation zone. That'll be the concern. Guys, I'm not going to go through a whole overview of what we had to be witnessing and watching at the City Ground, but I'm just going to pick out some key things. Of course, Spurs did make a number of changes to their squad. It was actually the same team they named for the Brentford game, of course, at home. So it did mean that Xavi Simons made it 3 consecutive starts in a row. Rodrigo Bentancur, of course, who played against Brentford, and João Palhinha against Slavia Prague, saw the Uruguayan come back in. 5th start out of 6 for midfielder Archie Gray. Whether he sees another one after this, we'll have to wait and see, of course. Many feeling that he was partly at fault for, of course, the opening goal, which we'll come on to in a second. We saw, of course, Rana Kanamawani used on the flank with Richarlison through the middle to pretty much complete the same starting 11 that faced Brentford last week. Tottenham's team red: Vicario Porro Romero, Van der Ven, Spence Gray, Bentancur, Kudus Xavi, Kanamawani, Richarlison, with subs of Kinski, Danzo, Davis, Bergvall, Sarr, Palhinha, Johnson, Odegaard, Tell. And before we come into some of the games itself, if you can, guys, for us out there, keep liking, subscribing, hyping to the show. That would be greatly appreciated. I think, Pat, you said it in the opening couple of minutes. Forest, they hit the post. So we were given a very early warning of what was to come during this game. And Neco Williams followed up, but Vicario did parry the ball away. But it wasn't too long before Forest did go ahead in what could only be described as an absolute mess. I'm just going to pretty much set the scene of the goal, and we'll get the guys' very quick thoughts on it individually. So for those that haven't been put through the goal yet, Vicario passed it out to Gray, who was calling for it, but the teenager had absolutely zero idea that Sangare was closing him down. The Forest man got the ball first. I mean, Vicario did well Vicario, really, you've got to look at his positioning and the element of playing that ball out and why he did. But Hudson-Odoi poked home the follow-up. Bill, we'll start with you very quickly on this. I've seen a lot of blame for Gray, a lot of blame for Vicario, a lot of blame for both. Where is the leadership in that back line, and how do we consider a goal of that nature so early on into that game, which kills, you can see, a lot of the confidence?
I think people have already said the answer. I think, it's a bit of both. I think Gray didn't have the awareness that Sangare is there. Vicario had other options to pass to as well. Van der Ven was an early pass there. Vicario could maybe have seen it coming because he had a bit, a forward view of the pitch. I think Gray, probably takes slight overall blame. But I think the bigger problem for me is the sort of the tactics in the system, that we continually play poorly at the back. It's not the first time this has happened this season. Probably won't be the last. I just think there's something wrong with the way that we're being set up to play at the back because, we saw it against Fulham, a horror show like this. particularly get inspired with any confidence when we play out with the back. It's not like we seem to have, well-defined roles of what we're doing and who's doing it when, like you need. If you're going to do that, we don't have the confidence to do it. I think Vicario's, we know he's a decent shot stopper. Certainly not for the second goal, but we know that his strength is not, with his distribution, and we're asking him to probably do a little bit too much, and that's tactical for me. So I think it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess of the goals conceded, and my wider concern is not the first time we've seen it this season, and it probably won't be the last.
Yeah, I know. Listen, Lubo, rightly so. I think you've been a champion of Gray, and I said to you recently that I think he is going to be an absolute fine player for the football club. I think he's got a really exciting future ahead of him. But I think it's also fine to think, Gray does have that big potential without maybe excusing him for every mistake he makes. There maybe is a feeling, Lubo, to let you come in and answer this, that Vicario maybe had every right to give him that pass. Yes, it's tight area, he's under pressure, but it is the Premier League, and there might be an argument that Gray, when that ball comes to him, knows he's got to play it first time. So very quickly, Lubo, for you, where do you apportion the blame for the way in which Spurs conceded that opening goal?
I think the pair of them together, I think firstly, Gray's inexperience, you look at how wide where our centre backs are.
Yeah.
Gray should never have gone and got asked for that pass in a million years. And secondly, if he's on the ball, he's got to realise that he's going to be closed down. So he shouldn't be taking the touch. Most of the time, when you see the keeper play the ball out to a Bentancur or a Polinia, they lay it off first time, straight away. Gray didn't do that. He got caught. That's down to him. Vicario, when he got the ball from I think it was Romero, he could have given it back comfortably, played Mickey van der Ven comfortably. When he didn't, and he hesitated, he should have hit it long. And that's down to him, because he can see the whole pitch in front of him. He can see Gray being closed down. Should never have given him the pass. So between the two of them, they've messed it up, and we're 1-0 down.
Yeah. Okay, look, we're going to fly around on this subject. I mean, in terms of the game itself, Archie Gray was trying to make a redemption for it. He had a swivel and hit a volley that the keeper saved and grabbed at the second attempt. I mean, Follis felt at one point the rightly aggrieved. They had a goal kick given when it maybe should have been a corner. There's no doubt it should have been a corner. Matt Wells, he looks like he may be saying a farewell to Spurs. He got a yellow card for complaining about a decision, which potentially, as we mentioned, could be his final game as Frank's assistant. And I mean, how bad that first half was that, as I mentioned, Kudus forgot Spurs' new habit of walking off together. They had to be called over and reminded they have to walk off in a huddle. That's how bad that first half was for Tottenham. And it was really, really bad. Once again from Frank, we've seen this common theme to this. No changes for Spurs in the second half. And a second goal followed very quickly, which again killed any chance of a half-time team talk really to take any momentum on the game. Second goal for Hudson-Odoi is his deep cross looped all the way over everyone into the far corner of the net when nobody expected to kill that far. Again, just a really, really poor goal to concede. And it will, again, ask further questions of Vicario's positioning, that the cross will lose everyone and goes over Vicario into the far corner. Pat, I heard what you said earlier about Vicario. I think it's a witch hunt, right? Vicario's been here for, 3 seasons now? I think after 3 seasons, you expect to see a degree of improvement. You expect someone to, positionally wise, be a lot more astute and be aware of who is around them, what the potential situation is. Vicario just not getting any better. And I think the worst thing as well is that he just bollocks everybody in sight without taking any sense of accountability for his own actions, Pat.
Yeah, I think the thing is, the goalkeeping position is the hardest position in football, because all eyes are on you. You make 1 or 2 mistakes, and that's all people remember. And also as well, if you want a decent team, any good team, forget decent, any good team needs, a solid foundation to build off of. So you need a good goalkeeper and 2 very good centre-backs. I think we have the 2 good centre-backs, but we don't have a good goalkeeper. And I just think Vicario is a decent keeper on his day, a fantastic shot stopper. We'll all agree to that. And he can be the difference in games. But there's also too many mistakes, way too many. And you can't, now again, you can forgive a mistake or 2, but I just think there's too many. And the cheap goals that we concede just allow teams that have got no confidence to build in confidence. You're away from home, they've got their tail up, and then it just makes a tough game even tougher. The second goal, is fortuitous for Callum Hudson-Odoi. It's obviously a cross that, you know, if with a bit of luck and maybe a bit of wind, it may find the back of the net. But with Vicario's positioning, yet again, it's a mistake. And it's a two silly goals to concede. The third goal was a banger, and that happens. You just hold your hands up.
I'm
Yes,
not sure,
we
Pat. You know,
we could have
the third
closed
goal onto
Sangare
it.
down. Don't get me
It's
wrong.
happened
We could
so
have
often
closed
this
him down.
season. We don't
But
close players down.
yeah, but you know, that's a good, you know, sometimes you hold your hands up and say, you know what, fair
Yeah,
play.
a great
You hit
finish,
it
but
9
don't
times
close
out of
players
10,
down.
that's not going in. But
Yeah,
you're right, we can also do the, you know, we can do the
the
controllables.
basics. The
Yeah, the
basics.
basics. You can't
Yeah.
control how well someone hits a shot and what happens. But if you close the player down, you're right, that you can control. But the first 2 goals, we literally gifted a team that doesn't score 2 goals. You're never gonna really get back into a
No,
game
no,
after that. And
not
I
against the
think
Sean
for
Dyche
me,
side. Not against the Sean Dyche
yeah,
side. Not.
yeah, Vicario just isn't good enough for us to build our hat on or lay out. You know, you can't bank on him game in
No.
and game out. And I think that's where, if we're honest, right now I would say play Kinski. Like, what do you have to lose playing Kinski? And I know Kinski hasn't always impressed, don't get me wrong. He had a good debut against Liverpool, shaky game against Arsenal where he should have saved, I think it was Odegaard's shot or Saka's shot, should have saved it. Or maybe it's Trossard, sorry, I think it was Trossard. But yeah, I mean, how much worse can it get,
I'll be
really?
honest with you, these keepers, in my opinion, I don't think either of them are up to the grade. I mean, look, I'm not saying Brandon Austin's the answer, but right now, I mean, I'm not sure either are actually any good. I mean, Brandon Austin had one. He had one good. He had a man in the match display. Brandon Austin for him, I think, against Newcastle. The next day, we then signed a goalkeeper.
Yeah, Brandon Austin was good as well. There was the Europa League game where he was really good last season.
Yeah, and just before anyone says it, I'm not suggesting Brandon Austin is Tottenham's long-term solution to the goalkeeping issue that we've got at the football club. But I'm just saying at the moment, based on what I've seen from Kinski and Vicario, I don't think they are either. I'll be honest. Luke, I want to come to you. Thomas Frank said this actually, I think, during the last international break. And it comes on to the third goal about giving players the opportunity to shoot from outside the box. And I think he mentioned around the fact, and I'm paraphrasing here, forgive me, that he's happy for certain phases of the game to allow shots to come from outside the box because the XG in certain areas is a lower percentage of the opposition from scoring. I don't know how many goals that we have conceded from. I mean, listen, again, this is not a goal we've conceded from a massive range out. But again, from what I've seen with Tottenham typically this season, we are not closing players down from the edge of the box. I've actually lost count now about the amount of goals we've conceded from either the edge of the area or from distance, with Thomas Frank suggesting that there's less a chance of the opposition scoring based on the XG. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sick of how much I'm talking about bloody XG this season. I don't think I've ever spoken about XG more than I have this season. But is it fair to say that as good as Sangare's goal is, to Pat's point, I think all 3 goals are avoidable? Am I being harsh there, Luke? What do you think?
No, 100%. And as you said, this isn't just one shot out of the blue that we've never seen before. This is a frequent occurrence that seems to happen, and it goes back to the previous point that I've made on this show. It's not in regards to all 3 goals, but as an accumulation. The more you spend defending, the more time you give, and the more chances you'll have at freak goals like Callum Hudson-Odoi. If you spent 60-70% of the game up in the other half, none of these happen. None of these little mistakes happen. None of this, I took a cross and it became a shot, happen. None of that happens. So this is why, for me, we need to stop being so defensive and allowing the team to just have the ball so much, because the amount of times where we've lofted the ball into the box and a defender's made a mistake and it's gone out for a corner, and it's just because we've lumped the ball in the box. We haven't done anything quality. You haven't got to do. You can just make that mistake. So all 3 of them goals are avoidable. If you're on the front foot, most of them you're probably not even in a position where you allow it to happen. But that coming across from either side, coming across and running onto it, it happens far too often. It's happening like on a weekly basis, even if we're not conceding. And I don't mind the XG thing. I don't mind it. You have to take everything into consideration. I'm not going to solely look at XG when I can look at a player and see it. I will use my initiative and use both of them fields. If we're saying just off the basis, just because the XG is low, we'll just allow them to do that. That doesn't make any sense. Especially what we need to understand is that these guys are working on this as a tactic. If the tactic is we allow people to shoot from distance, but if they're not very good at shooting from distance, you then just become naturally, you allow people to shoot more. You won't go, oh, hang on a minute, he's a bit better, so I'll make sure I get out to him, because you've naturally been ingrained to not go and press that. So I don't believe in that. And we've said it so many times, and I'm guilty of it as well. And people in the chats constantly saying it as well. We say about being good enough, good enough, good enough. What do we think is good enough? Because where do we think we should be? Because people are talking now about top fours. We're nowhere near top four. No, none of these. You could argue maybe there's 3 players in this team that are good enough for a top 4.
Nowhere near.
Nobody else is. So what we say, like, there are a lot of people saying that these players are not good enough for Frank. They're not good enough to be in the top 10. Come on, like these are all internationals, and I don't think that they are the star players in teams. But if you covered a couple of positions where you had top class players, if, for instance, sorry to keep going back to previous glories, if we had Son and Kane in this team, we would not be sitting here saying none of these players are good enough, only Son and Kane are, because it completely revolutionizes stuff. We need to get a few more good players, of course we do, and we need to get better players. But to say that none of these players are good enough, then, and also when this happened last year and we had so many injuries and we was playing Gray and Dragusin, it was like, well, we need to adapt. If none of these players are good enough, maybe stop playing here, maybe go longer, maybe find other ways of being able to come up with stuff to make us more effective. But sitting back too much is just it just causes so many problems, and you're more liable to make mistakes, which is what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, to whisk around you very quickly, you very kindly just passed me this stat that you come off the back of it. In terms of goals conceded by long distance, 2 versus Brighton, 2 versus Forest, 2 versus Villa, 3 versus PSG, 2 versus Fulham. There's a comp doing the rounds on X at the moment. It's a problem. It's a big problem, right? And it comes down, I think, again, to the manager being very accepting of the fact that he's allowing teams to take shots outside the box, and our refusal and failure to close players down. Or is it about the players not doing their jobs, Bill? What is it? Is it both?
Oh, it's tactical. It's tactical without a doubt, mate. Because if people that I follow that are way cleverer than me about this kind of thing, people like Kish, who I know has been on the show before, has done a really good video on this. I highly recommend anyone how this has been happening for a while this season. It's been called out by a few of the Tottenham tactical minds on Twitter. And what it is essentially is our defensive line is so deep, it's sort of quite far deep in the box, and then there's no kind of tactical instruction to go and close down shots from outside the box. And Thomas Frank himself says he doesn't believe that long shots are worth the XG that they create, and he doesn't believe in them. I think that also transpires to a defensive point of view as well. He doesn't seem to think that it's okay to let people shoot from long range because it's a low percentage XG. Well, it's not very low percentage for us, because that's a third of our Premier League goals are conceded from outside the box or long range shots, which is terrible. And this reminds me of a couple of seasons ago when we were conceding every game of set piece after set piece after set piece. Now it's like edge of the box goal after edge of the box goal. And it's because our defensive line is very deep, and there's no tactical instructions to go and close the player down. And it's hurting us, almost every game at this point.
Look, we've gone through the 3 goals. Lubin, I'll let you touch upon very quickly the substitution, then we're going to do a 1-round table and we are going to close. The substitution, right, which I know, again, in that stadium, lost a lot of fans. So Bergvall, Polina, Davis replaced Bentancur, Gray and Spence. He's bringing on a defensive-minded player in Polina. He's bringing on Ben Davies. So again, I think Ben Davies is a model professional, right? I'm not knocking Ben Davies as a human being, but there's 2 players there. With all due respect, they're not going to get you back into a game when at the time we were 2 down at Forest. Can you in any way understand what he's doing with that substitution, Lubo?
I would have brought Tell on, to be honest with you. Taken Richie off, pushed Mawani across. That would have been one. Bergvall for Gray, yes. Paulinho, Bentancur, either or. Don't think it makes too much difference. The problem is, look at who we had on the bench. You've got Bergvall where there's potential. You got Tell where there's potential.
It's just potential. Isn't it?
No, but
yeah.
You know, do you think Dyche was looking at our bench thinking, "Oh my God, look who they've got to come on"?
Yeah, but it just shows, doesn't it, Lubo?
That's the problem. That's the problem.
Let you come back in though. Johnson has fallen, and I'm not saying. Look, just be very clear. Johnson, I think, there's a common notion now that all that guy does is score goals and very little else, right? And I think that's fair based on what we're seeing. It's very interesting because at the moment, Tottenham's highest goal scorer last season, Lubo, rightly or wrongly, and Frank watches him every day in training, doesn't fancy him. Just doesn't fancy him, does he?
He doesn't, but then Ange played a different system completely.
Of course, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So what the system Frank has played has nullified Johnson's strengths.
Yeah.
Johnson can't hold the ball up. Very rarely goes at players. When he does, on the odd occasion, he did once, I think recently, had a go at one of the fullbacks, went round him, caused a problem. Doesn't do that enough. Doesn't contribute. If he's not scoring, he brings nothing to the team. The problem you've got is that whoever came in today, the performance was so poor. In fact, to be honest with you, Tell came on. I don't think he gave the ball away, but went on one nice run and got a corner. He was only on for 5 or 10 minutes. And he did more in that 5 or 10 minutes than most of the other players did in 90, 95 minutes.
He did the same in the Newcastle game as well, and then didn't get a minute the next game.
Yeah, I think the way he's been treated has been appalling. You know, last season I didn't like, just didn't rate him, didn't understand why we renewed, why we actually bought him. I think that was, from what I was told, that was down. There was an obligation to buy subject to Tell wanting to join. Tell wanted to join. He obviously, he's seeing Luis Diaz come to Bayern Munich, so he goes further down the pecking order. Gnabry's there, Musiala's there. He's just not going. He's not going to get any game time in the front line. So he probably thought, I'll come to Spurs. I've got more chance of game time at Tottenham. He wasn't what we needed. We needed somebody like a Lookman,
Agree. We were all saying, and you were on deadline day saying that as well. We were all saying that.
Someone who's Premier League proven.
Yep. Look. Go on,
so the subs bench, Ricky.
Yep.
What was there to change the game? We're 2-0 down.
Very fair, but I mean, for me, it's just a message it sends out. You're bringing on a defensive-minded player in Polina, and you're bringing on Ben Davies, with all due respect, that is probably in his last knockings as a Tottenham player.
No,
every time
right.
we go and say that, he'll probably get a renewal to his contract and up doing the book club. I don't know. Look,
you're 100% right. They were poor substitutions, and they didn't show any ambition whatsoever to get the game back.
Yeah.
Even though we probably all knew there was no way, the way they were playing, we were ever going to get 3 goals back.
And then after the game, he defends it by saying we had 4 offensive players on the pitch. So I felt that, just to go back to the bit before I said we're disjointed, if you're disjointed, you can have 11 offensive players on the pitch. It will not help. So we need to be in sync. And in that, it helps. And hopefully we could find a way back after that. He also said that Guillermo Vicario was not at fault for the first goal of the game. And he said he needs to look into Jed Spence's reaction after being, let's be honest about it, angrily substituted and throwing his jacket on the floor. It's just another day in the life of Spurs where it is just an absolute mess, Final question to you all, guys. One word and answer, because I appreciate it's late. We've all got to finish up here. Pat, we'll come to you first. Based on what you're seeing, what is the expectation this season, Pat, if you can summarise in a couple of words for us?
Top 8, I'd say 8th to 11th, pretty much where we are right now, unless things change drastically. I can't see us doing any better than that. Maybe the knockout stages of the Champions League. I probably don't see us beating Aston Villa in the Cup, so that's probably it, if I'm being honest. Unless things change. All it takes is a couple of wins to string in some performances, and then players find their form.
Or change your manager.
Yeah, or change the manager. But if things stay like this, then yeah, it's 8th to 11th or 12th. We'll probably reach the knockout stages of the Champions League, and that's it.
It just was that Mick McCarthy meme, can it? Every week, it can't get worse than this. It can. Pat, thank you so much. Luke, very quickly to you. Gut feeling based on what you're seeing so far. 16 games is a good barometer. to make a judgment. Luke, where are we finishing based on what you're seeing and season so far? What do you feel?
Tottenham told us we're going to challenge on all fronts, so that's where we should be challenging, right? As the guy said, you get a couple of wins, see what the January transfer is like. I feel like if we finish outside the top 8 this year, then serious questions need to be asked. When you look at some of the teams that are up there, Sunderland's, you would expect them to run out of a bit of steam. Obviously, Everton are up there as well. They haven't scored many goals, but every time they score, they seem to win a game, sort of thing. So I'll be very disappointed if we finish outside the top 8. Although, again, depending on where you look at it, maybe not having European football next year might give you actually the benchmark to really start trying to gut this squad out, getting some tactics in and everything else. But I just feel like Frank was the guy if we didn't get Europe, and that would have been the perfect scenario. So, but yeah, top 8, anything below top 8, I think is a real struggle for a lot of players and fans and teams and everything.
Luke, been a pleasure having you back on. Thank you so much. Lubo, coming to you. Gut feeling, based on what you're seeing, what you're being put through and what you're watching, where's this club finishing?
If we're staying with no changes from now to the end of the season, we haven't got a hope in hell of finishing 8th. What we've got to hope is that we bring some better players in January that completely change the whole dynamic. Ask me again, Ricky, on February the 1st.
I've got a feeling, Lubo.
Where you think we'll finish, because 2 or 3 really good players coming in can change the whole thing, and if you get Kulusevski back as well, otherwise, the way it's going at the moment, I'm sorry, I've seen 8 appalling performances so far. Frank disappointed me with what he said about, you'll see us play well for 10, 12 games. Average for 20. I mean, that was
that was an awful interview.
That was dreadful. That was
context. And I didn't see that, Lubo. Just for context, before you come back in there, Frank said in a perfect season you might get, I think, 10 to 15 great games, but 30 average. It was an awful analogy, and I mean, with all due respect, coming from somebody who was talking like a mid-table manager. And I go back to this. Spurs, and you said this, Lubo. We're not an elite club, but we are a big club. And my worry is we've got a manager that doesn't know how to handle a big club, Lubo. That's my worry.
I think I'm starting to get worried about, because at the end of the day, I want Frank to do well. I want every manager to do well. I'm sick of the managerial merry-go-round, that door revolving all the time. I want Frank to be given a chance. We need several transfer windows to sort this squad out. I think everybody can see that. If you just keep changing the manager, then it's never going to happen. We're continually we haven't got. And I've got to say, Luke, Kane and Son, you said put them in this team, and no, mate. Kane and Son papered over the cracks for many years, and you're now seeing how average we are without them.
Okay, look, we're going to go to Billy to close. Bill, you've been here so many times on these kind of shows where week to week we're not sure what's coming next, but based on what you're seeing right now in terms of the eye test and what we're being put through, what is the 6 expectations as we approach middle of December and where we are right now based on 16 games in, FA Cup, Champions League in play? What do you see happening?
I think it completely depends on how ambitious the inverted commas new owners are going to be. If it was me, I'd bin off the PE teacher, go and show some ambition in January and spend the rest of the season getting our identity back, and then go into next season, firing with another massive summer transfer window. Do I think they'll do that? Probably not, because really it's the same owners that have been here for 25 years. But I think if they have any ambition whatsoever, they need to show it in January.
Yeah, they better show it fast, because Frank has said he needs signings early. Whether Frank is actually here to oversee the signings, we will wait and see. I want to say a massive thanks to this wonderful panel. It's been a late night edition of a show where, quite frankly, we're not sure where it was going to take us. Thank you so much to Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. Please go check him out. Pat, I can tell you he's back now for good. Sorry, Pat. Lubo's locked in. We're not letting him out. He's here for the season, as is the wonderful Billie T. Listen, we've been the last one on Spurs. Thank you to over the 15,500 that have listened, watched, and who knows what's coming our way. We want to bring you hopefully a decent festive period in terms of some laughs and some joy. I can't promise that's going to happen based on what we're seeing on the field, and who knows what's coming off it. We'll have you covered every step of the way. Like, subscribe, hype to the show. From Billy, from Luke, from Pat, from Lubo. We have been the last one on Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.